Good morning, welcome. This is our second General Parent Faculty Association meeting. Our first one was in September. So we have two action items for today before we welcome Dr. Luizzi and hear about our district's 2025-26 budget. The first one is to approve our minutes from our September meeting. So may I have a motion to approve the September 11th PFA General minutes? Ann Shimmick, thank you. Second. Allie Dunlap, thank you. All right, all in favor? Great. Anyone opposed? Wonderful. Okay, motion approved. The minutes are passed. Thank you. All right, so the second item is to present and vote on a campus improvement. And before I jump into this first slide, over the course of the past few years, we've been doing several initiatives to just improve the campus and beautify and update. And the most notable one, I'm sure you've noticed, is the campus entrance sign. It's a stone wall with architectural lettering saying New Canaan High School. It replaced another sign that was there since 1998. We have been able to move it. It's now in the entrance right by the Water Tower 3. So if you ever come back to the school through Waveney, you should be able to see that. It's right at the base of the stairs there. So in any case, we're able to bring that to completion. We're also hopeful to add some landscaping to our front entrance sign. We obviously need to wait until the weather gets better. So in the interim, we would like to use some of our annual appeal dollars for our front entrance to the school in the portico. So as you may or may not have noticed, we have a vinyl sign there. Vinyl signs usually last 1 to 3 years. It's been there about 5, so it's faded and not holding up as well. So what we are proposing is to remove that vinyl banner and take the letters that now are at the outside facade of our auditorium, New Canaan High School, and we would like to move those to the bottom right slide there. So those are the same letters, so we're just repurposing those. And then also put some 2 ram heads on either side. We've been trying to make sure that every student, it feels like they are a ram and boost our school spirit. And then in replace of the New Canaan High School letters that were on the outside of the auditorium, we would like to acknowledge and celebrate our extraordinary visual and performing arts department and put up these letters up on that facade. Does everyone know where I'm talking about? Does this make sense? Okay, great. All right, so in order for that to occur, we have a quote from a recognized district vendor called Hungwell Signs. He, the gentleman who we've worked with the most, also did the letters in the entrance sign that you see that I've just discussed, as well as all of the banners that are on all of the flagpoles. So he's someone that we've worked with, that knows the school, and we have a working relationship with him. All right, so in summary, before we vote on this, I just want to make sure everyone's clear on what we're proposing. So to summarize, we're going to remove the existing vinyl banner that's at the portico entrance right now, and then place the letters that were on the outside facade of the auditorium, place them where that vinyl banner was, and then add our ram heads on either side, and then add our visual and performing arts in the old location of New Canaan High School. I should add that by doing this, we are also balancing out the sign that we have outside because we have athletics complex on the other side of our building. So it's just a nice way to honor both of these extraordinary departments in our school. Okay.
Once we had a conversation last year about maybe we'll put the home Rams in front and all that, and some of the kids actually came forward and were like, well, it doesn't feel like everybody's a Rams. What do you mean? And the essence of it was we really weren't celebrating the visual performing arts kids in a way that they had a visual recognition of it. So this kind of gives them a way to feel like a part of the school is there and recognized for them. So.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so are there any questions on this? We have our quote at the bottom. It's well within our annual appeal dollars to use this. Great. Okay. Well, with that, may I have a motion to approve the building entrance proposal? Michelle Riley, thank you. A second? Heather Bollinger, thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Excellent. Well, thank you. Motion approved. All right. You will see this in the coming months. It might not be till the end of the year, but in any case, we're in motion. So thank you. All right. Well, this concludes our PFA business. So now I would like to extend a warm welcome to our superintendent, Dr. Luizzi, who is going to discuss our 25-26 budget. Thank you. Of course. I don't know. You know how to switch this?
I got it.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah. I always use my own laptop. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Oh, wait, one thing. Sorry. I keep my laptop, my computer's on night shift. Because I heard somewhere that it was better to do for your eyes. But, doesn't that look better?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Good.
There's the sun.
It is. It has two appearances in this presentation. Knowing, I know my audience, and and twice you'll be able to see the sign that was recently put in. Yep. In the upper left there. So good morning. It is wonderful to see you. Thank you for braving the cold, coming out to talk about everybody's favorite topic. I used to say we should bill this as Bryan Bagels and Budget, but just budget. And but I will move through pretty quickly. Some of you have seen the presentation before. Others maybe tuned in a little bit, maybe not. But there's some things in here that I think are very important to talk about, and I think that you'll find very interesting as we go through. I'm happy to slow down, speed up, do whatever works for you. I tried to be as quick as I could at the elementary schools yesterday, and it took way too long. So I'm going to try to beat my time from yesterday. First, I want to say thanks to everyone who is a part of building our budget. Just so you know, when we do this, the work starts in October, early October, and we begin by meeting with our project managers, our principals, our department heads, others, and I think of this as sort of a top-down and bottom-up kind of approach. I believe, and we believe as a district, that the decisions about the work that we do are best made at the level at which the work is done. So we don't sit in our offices and say, here. What we do is go out, we talk to folks, we listen to what's working, what's not working, what needs to be refined, what doesn't, and that becomes an iterative process as we sort of build the budget back up. It's a lot more than a spreadsheet, as I think you'll know, and we'll talk about that briefly. I want to say thank you to our Board of Education. As you know, we have a 9-member volunteer Board of Education who spend an awful lot of time, not just with the budget, but with the district as a whole. We've got 4 different committees that meet once or twice a month that with board members on them. We meet twice a month as a board. If you've noticed, the other town bodies meet once a month. Generally, we'll meet twice a month. We have presentations. The meetings are typically 90 minutes plus, executive sessions, everything else. So it's an enormous commitment, and they put a lot into the work that we do. And I want to say thank you. And Erica, thank you for coming this morning, representing the secretary of our board, but you don't have to take minutes, I don't think. Yeah. Okay. As I mentioned, we begin the process in October internally, and then what happens is in December, typically the second Monday in December, we have our budget workshop, and that's where we begin to talk about ideas and the things that we are contemplating and thinking about for the budget as we go forward. What I love about our budget workshop is it's not really about budget. We don't talk about numbers and percentages or any of those things, other than sometimes we'll talk about insurance because that's separate. But it's really a conversation about ideas. We're talking about what are we thinking about for the district, for next year, for beyond. How do we continue to build on what we have? And I like to frame it as a way it's sort of true to the values that we hold here in New Canaan, that the quality of the idea on behalf of children, of students, is the single most important determinant of whether or not we do something. It's not the effort, it's not the cost, it's not the others, it's the quality of the idea on behalf of children. And so the budget workshop sort of signals that value, because we don't necessarily know at that point what some of the costs might be, but we know what the ideas are, we know what the concepts are, and we know what the vision is for the work that we're doing. So anyway, we start with the budget workshop, work our way through. Here we are now. It's already I'm 4 meetings deep into a 17-plus meeting schedule. So we start in October. We go public in December. We come out with the budget in January. 2 days ago, I presented the formal budget overall summary and things to the Board of Ed. We'll have other meetings as we go through that month, and then we go over to the town with the Board of Selectmen, then we go to the Board of Finance. We wrap up with the town council on April 3rd. So October to April. So when you hear people talk about the grueling budget process and all of those things, that's part of what we're talking about. It was a surprise to me when I got into the superintendency now 11 years ago that it's demanding in all kinds of ways. It's also an endurance test every year as you get into the winters and the 4 a.m. calls. Did it snow last night? Is there ice? Do we have power at south? Is there a fire at west? Like all these kinds of things that happen. You never know, and that's what the year is, right? As we go through it. So with our budget, it takes a long time, but we do it on purpose, intentionally, to make sure that we give everybody who wants an opportunity to learn about it, to have input, to share ideas, and to make sure that the town feels confident in what we're doing. And I will say the relationship with the town has been fantastic through the years. There's an awful lot of trust there because we really work very, very hard to be careful stewards of everything that we have, and we know how blessed we are, and that it's our responsibility to use all of the resources we have in the best possible way on behalf of kids. And I think we do that very well. So lots and lots of meetings and groups and conversations, all of which, as you can tell, I enjoy. So thank you for being here. When you think about our budget, I think the best way to understand it in the next year's budget for sure is, I think about it in terms of we're investing in excellence. We're investing in the systems that currently exist to looking at their efficiency, looking at the optimization, making sure that we have the learning, the professional learning, the growth, all of what it takes to do the very best for our kids based on the system that's currently in place. So we're investing in that excellence as we're doing it. And how we do that in part is to be aligned with our district goals. And so every year, the Board of Education reviews these goals. They've been consistent now for about 15 years, give or take, maybe even a little bit longer. These 5 goals, but underneath the 5 goals are about 30 or so objectives and indicators of progress in specific areas. So the goals are they're the true north, and then the work really happens in how we operate, the work that we do, focused on each of these 5. So for instance, goal number 1 is all about its student performance, student outcomes. So when we look at goal 1, we think about our, certainly, sort of those standardized assessments we have to take, but how are our kids doing in the classroom? How are they doing in APs? How are they doing in their trajectory as students moving their way through our classrooms and through our program K-12? So it's all about that student learning outcomes. And we look at curriculum instruction and assessment around that. I say these aren't in priority order, but that is the most important thing we do, right? So the instructional course, so we start there. We talk about communication as a strategic approach to communicating with the community to make sure that we're building that trust and focused on the things that matter most. And I think we do a wonderful job with that. And again, our budget helps to resource these objectives that we have under these goals. Promoting and supporting exemplary instructional practice is a goal that we've had, of course, because again, the most important thing we do happens in the classroom every day, and that interaction between teacher, student, and content in the instructional core. So we focus on that. Talk about what do our schools feel like? We were just talking about it. We want every student who walks into high school to feel like a Ram, a New Canaan Ram. And I think the school spirit here is amazing. And that goes down, that exists at Saks, that exists at our elementary schools. It's a powerful part of who we are as a district, who our kids are as New Canaan students, who you are as community members, and we want to continue to promote that. As a matter of fact, I was just talking briefly with Emily about when we were shut down and when we were in the pandemic, the beginning parts of the pandemic. And one of our goals, we had 4 overarching goals that we used. And if you're on any of those webinars back then, you heard me talk about this a bit. But one of them was to make sure that our students continue to feel connected to their schools as members of their school community, which is why we kept our schedule the way it was, why when they logged in, they were, together as a class, not doing it asynchronously, but together. And it's something we've always felt very strongly about. We want to make sure that our kids feel welcome and a part of the greater community that we have here. And I think thanks to the PTC and the PFA, you do a wonderful job in supporting that and helping to make that happen. And then, of course, the last, as I mentioned before, is to be good stewards of what we have. Because we're asking the town annually to make an investment. This year, it's over $105 million. That's an awful lot of investment. And we want to make sure that we are good stewards of every single penny. Make sure that we're taking care of the facilities that we have, taking care of the grounds around us, taking care of all of what we have, all of those resources, the technology, the vans that we have, everything else, and making sure they are best serving our kids and our community. So before we talk about next year, I always like to think about a couple of highlights of the year that we're in the midst of, right? So what's the return on the investment of the 24-25 budget? So a couple of highlights. And again, I'll move quickly through this because you live it and know it certainly as well as I do. But our athletic highlights, I think, are impressive when we look at of 7 possible state titles in the fall. Our teams won 3 of them, right? So we had cross country, we had girls soccer, and we have football. 3 of 7. And for the school our high school is actually one of the smallest schools in the FCAC too, in the conference that we compete in. And yet we always perform incredibly well. All of these metrics are very important, but I think what's equally important is knowing that close to 70% of our kids participate in one or more sport each year. 70% participate in our athletic program. I think that is such a statement, again, going back to that school spirit and wanting to be a part of things, part of the community. That's a very impressive number. And here we have girls soccer, we have field hockey, girls lacrosse, and our football team. Again, just the kids on the field, learning, growing, challenging themselves. Same goes in our VPA program, right, where we have our students who are regularly participating in adjudicated art shows. They're doing amazing work right down the hall over here in our visual performing arts program. And these are some of the same kids, some different kids, and they all find their path and find their connection in the schools. So here we've got the cows in the fog on the left. We've gold key winners, best photography, scholastic art winners. At the bottom picture there is Sacred Heart University's Teen Visions art exhibition. Again, it's a juried awards, and kids that they're having an opportunity to show their work, not just internally, but to have it adjudicated, which I think is a wonderful thing. Great opportunity for them to grow. Of course, our music department is continuing to thrive as well. We have our choir night. We have our band at the pep rally. So that's, again, kids finding ways to bring the things they love into the school day. And then our orchestra, combined orchestra. I love that picture. Along with that, we have our co-curricular and extracurricular opportunities for kids. Because again, we want to make sure that schools are welcoming places where kids want to be. And we know that what happens in the classroom is the core, but everything else is equally important to a child, right? They want to be a part of that team on the field. They want to be performing on the stage. They want to be playing with their friends. They want to be creating and developing art and music and doing other things. And they want to find other fun ways to enjoy themselves and explore their interests. A few years ago, there were a couple of kids who got together and said, we want to start a beekeeping club. So they went to the administration and said, hey, can we start a beekeeping club? The administration sent an email out to everybody and said, anybody want to do this? And a teacher wrote back and said, well, I have no idea how to keep bees, but I'll do it. And the kids said, well, we don't have any idea how to do it, but we want to do it. And so they got together and they figured it out. And they created a beekeeping club and figured out, did their research, worked together, probably killed some bees, but had some fun and made some honey and did their thing. So that's the spirit we're trying to build in our school, right? Because, so I have 2 daughters. They're now 21 and 23 years old. And when they go off to school, when they have that sort of spirit of curiosity and exploration, it can stay with them. So when they go off to these bigger or smaller schools, you want them to be looking out for things that they're interested in and pursuing those interests outside of the classroom. And that's where they're finding other people that have similar interests, right? And they're building friend groups and doing those other positive things. So we know kind of inspiring them and creating the space for them to explore here will carry over into there. And then even after school, right? In life as they continue on. So great stuff. Our drama program is continuing to thrive. We have a new visual performing arts director who is sort of continuing that momentum for us. At many schools that I know of, at a high school and a middle school, they might have 2, maybe 3 shows per year. Typically a routine, a rhythm is to do a drama in the fall, and then you do a musical in the spring, and then you might have a little something else at the end of the year as a celebration, and that's it. We do 5 at the high school. We do similar over at the middle and intermediate school. We also have our Drama Fest, which is student written and directed and produced and all. Like, we are so immersed in this, and I think it's wonderful. It gives our kids such great opportunity. It gives more kids an opportunity to participate. And for every one on the stage, there's 2 backstage doing the other work, doing all of what it takes to make these shows happen. And the performances are outstanding. And there's also, again, adjudication and awards and all this stuff, but really the pure joy. Having one of my 2 daughters was involved with drama as she went through school. So we unknowingly were slated to host the after party after the last performance. So they all just showed up at the house, which is wonderful. And this is going back a few years, but they came in and we're laughing, joking, whatever. The release that they feel after that last performance, it's like a state championship, right? And they feel so good and so happy. And then somebody sat at the piano and they redid the entire show, every single line of the show in my house. And it was the wedding singer. And then towards the end, somebody showed up, one of their friends who worked in a bakery and is now doing this professionally, shows up with a wedding cake at the house. And they have this wedding cake and they do the wedding singer. And my daughter was the Drew Barrymore part. And the joy and the love and all, it's just so powerful, right? Those are the experiences we want for our kids. That's why we care so deeply about all of this. And this is part of, I mention this because all the support that goes into it. It doesn't happen without the budget, without the vision, without the commitment, and without the support of each and every one of you. I know driving those kids to practices, going through, having the late night pickups, all that stuff is rough. But it's also fundamental to helping them to become the people we want them to be. So we have other extracurricular experiences, co-curricular experiences. We've got our cooking club, Model UN, which is continuing to grow and to thrive. It's in both schools, I know. They go out to The Hague every year, a group of them overseas. They compete and participate, really. Compete's kind of a funny word for Model UN. But they always distinguish themselves. This is them at UConn earlier this year where they won 3 awards of distinction. And then we also have those co-curricular programs like our video production class, where they go to the games and they're giving the play-by-play, they're giving the replays and the videos. They're on TV, they're on live streaming during those games, which is wonderful. Gives an opportunity for people who maybe can't come in person to the games to see them, and also to hear our kids giving that commentary and reporting, whatever. So they do a great job. All of that matters. It's possible in part because of our focus on what happens in the classroom as well. So we also have to look, again, goal 1, we have to look at how our students are performing. So when we look at some of these standardized assessments, we look at Smarter Balanced, which is what students in grades 3 through 8 take, as our intermediate middle school folks know. And when we look at our performance over time, you see that we have continued to perform very well. Of course, there's a little dip in 2020, didn't exist. You remember, we were just talking about it. But we've picked back up that momentum and feel really good about where we're going. And when we look at our outcomes in relation to those around us, this is our DERG, which is our demographic reference group, which are sort of like districts. We use this as a way to just gauge ourselves and how we're doing. All of these scores are excellent. So we always have to be careful to say that. Everyone performs. This is a very high-performing group of schools. And in this past year, in 2024, we were the highest performing in this reference group this is ELA, and statewide as well. And the same goes for our math. again, every score here is a source of pride for every one of these districts. We get a little more. And it puts us at the top of the state as well. At the high school, we've been working hard for years to expand our AP program because we do believe also, just similar to that sense of curiosity and exploration being important, we also want to provide as many opportunities as possible for students to take college-level work while they're here at the high school in areas of interest and strength for them, so that they can experience that success while they're here, and the struggles too while they're with you and us, where we can provide them with the support, help them build those skills that they need and those habits that they need to set them up for success later. So when we started back in 2011, we started tracking this, which was the year before I started as the high school principal. Little backstory there. So I came as a high school principal in 2011. And then became the superintendent in 2014. In 2011, we had 18 courses for students, and they were pretty traditional. They were your 2 English courses, which are the 2 that we still have here. They were your AP Bio, your AP Chem, AP Calc, sort of that traditional portfolio. What we've done since then is expand to 29 different courses. And doing that, we've tried to really expand it, not just more of the same, but some different opportunities for kids, so that they can find an area of strength for them, plug in, and go as far as they can go with it, again, here in the high school, prior to graduation and whatever comes next. So you see, we've really expanded our social studies program quite a bit, and that's, by its very nature, the discipline social studies is sort of a catch-all, so we're able to do that with the economics, with the comparative government, with the psychology. We always had the U.S. history, we had the world history, but some of those others we've been able to add in, and the enrollment has been great. Same with our CTE, with our AP Computer Science. We've expanded our sciences, we've expanded the AP Stats, other things which really, again, draw more kids in. So what you see, and this is a very complicated graphic that I could spend 20 minutes plus on. I won't do that to you. The long and short of it is this. Well, you know how change is, Bill. It's all about momentum. Bill, it's about momentum. Momentum. The hardest step is the first. All right, so, all right, I'll stop. The red line is the number of tests administered to students in New Canaan High School, okay? The gray that you can barely see with the numbers at the top, that's our total student population at the school. So just on the whole, you see that's been pretty consistent, right? So our total number of students, 1,300, give or take, is about the same. The total number of tests, you see that upward trajectory. The blue line is the number of test takers, the number of students taking 1 or more tests. So like I said, we've got close to 70% of our students participating in 1 or more sports. Same thing here, it's 1 or more test takers. And again, the school population size hasn't changed all that much, but you see that, again, the upward trajectory. And then the green line is their performance at a 3 or better. Because the College Board, when they norm the assessments, they norm it so that a 3 or better is considered college level work, that they've performed at a college level, right? So that's a number you want to see stay consistent. So we go from 92 to 95.6% of our students performing at that level, while we're more than doubling the number of kids who are participating, and more than tripling the number of assessments that they're taking. So that to me is, that says it all, right? With this program, the work we've been doing. And I will say, just backing up, all kidding aside, when I began as the high school principal in 2011, it was a conversation with the Board of Education, the superintendent, where they said, we believe we can do better here. And so we really started to focus on it. And you're right, Bill, I was kind of middling along until you came here, and then, but we were able to sort of take that forward. I will. It's more fun when you're not here. No, we've really done a great job. And again, it's opportunity. We believe that, and it shows again and again, if we create the opportunity for kids, they'll take advantage of those opportunities, right? Because in sociological research, you can't measure motivation. There's not really a good measure for that. And people often talk about kids being unmotivated or whatever. So we don't even bother with that conversation. What we say is, are we providing them with enough opportunities that they find something of interest and engage with that? And that's been our focus, right? on us. What are we doing to create the system for our kids to plug in, engage, and perform? And that's what we've been seeing. So really credit to the middle school work that prepares our students to come up to the high school and take advantage of these things. Credit to the high school for creating those opportunities for kids to be able to do it. It's a source of great pride, as you can tell. So we look outcomes, right? So students, as they're working their way through, what happens next. So we put together quickly a list of the most applied to schools. These will be on the website too, but you're welcome to take pictures. The Yukon is the highest, right, at 132, and you can see the numbers there. Our enrollments matter. So we have 11 students who enrolled at Yukon this past year. We had 10 at Syracuse, 9 at Bucknell, 8 at Northeastern in Michigan, 7 at Miami and Providence, 6 at BYU, Indiana, Sacred Heart, a few others, Wisconsin, 5 at Boston College, 4 at Clemson. So I have to put that in. Our counselors are very busy, very busy people. And the board supported the addition of a 9th counselor this past budget year. So this is the first year with that new position. We had 309 students graduate last year. They sent transcripts off to 341 different colleges and just under 3,000 total transcripts. So an average of about 10 transcripts per student to 341 different schools. And I do love the 341 different schools because I think a trap that we all fall in is we tend to funnel. Right, and I'm doing it, but we're a little more open, right? Whatever. But we do funnel a bit, but we want to also make sure that students recognize that there's so many great opportunities waiting for them, and trying to really make sure that they widen their net so that they can find that one school where they're going to thrive. Somebody might thrive in a most competitive school at the very top, but maybe it's somebody else can thrive somewhere else. We don't know what's best for others. We try to really help them understand what's best, look for what's best for them, not based on what other people might think. So we do a lot of work around that. 93% of our graduates are currently attending four-year schools. So I think that says quite a bit as well. And we always bring back together our graduating class after their first semester away. So we do a breakfast with them. We meet down in the College and Career Center. They come in. We have about a dozen or so down there, and we talk about their experiences. Did they feel prepared? And anything that it's funny, I always ask this question, and I always get a similar response. And I say, well, is there anything your roommate or your friends talk about, like sort of a class they took in high school, whatever, that you wish we had here? He said, Dr. Luizzi, we don't talk about that. I'm like, okay, all right. But I keep trying. But we do sometimes get really good ideas from them. So the macroeconomics that we have, that sort of germinated from conversation, them saying we all have to take economics when we get there in our freshman year. We'd love to have an intro, something here at the school. So that sort of helped us to think about our economics program and doing something with that. And some other ideas that come from our kids. Well, all that, those are sort of outcomes and things and whatever. Also, we've had a lot of inputs going on. It's been a very busy year. This could have been a longer list, but I ran out of room. We've been focused on security work across the district, and I know you've seen some of that here and at some of the other schools. And we have our SROs now at every building, and I talk regularly with the chief of police and his deputy chief and others in order to, around coordination with that. And I know our principals work very well and closely with those SROs. So we have a division of the New Canaan Public Schools, New Canaan Police Department, essentially, that's made up of 5 SROs as they're doing this work. We've improved our security cameras, upgraded our scan entry system. We have our badges that we scan in and out of. Now what we've done is set it up so we can have a timer on every door. So if a door is inadvertently left open, it'll alert us after a certain period of time, and then we can go check on that and make sure that it's closed and what have you. We've done other things as well, like the speed hump in the front. As you drove in, you saw that. Bollards in some different places. We're working on some guardrails and fencing at our elementary schools that will be nice. So like similar to what's up at Waveney, where it's just the wooden guardrails that are there. Kid height, so they can sit on it if they're waiting for their parents or whatever. What they don't know is it's also steel reinforced, so just in case a car loses control or something else, it protects anybody who might be on those spaces. So thinking a lot about all those things, and those are the things that you see, and there's other things going on that you don't, which is part of how we do school security and works very well with our Crisis Advisory Board and our co-chair, Christy Carrero, who's here now. Hi, Christy. We also, as a school district, we operate within a set of legislation and laws and everything else, so we are responding to the mandates as we need to and fulfilling those. It's our responsibility to do that. We had to resubmit our teacher evaluation plan this year. We developed an increasing educator diversity plan. We finished our negotiations with 5 different unions that we have across the district. 4. We're in with 5 now, the 5th one. So we finished up those negotiations with our teachers, with our food service, with our custodians, with our administrative assistants. So all of that work always continues as we're doing it. And that's kind of all the behind-the-scenes stuff, or the backstage stuff, the front of the stage stuff, are the things that our kids really get to enjoy, right, and be a part of and to experience. So we've opened the Dome, again, thanks to PTC, PFA, everyone's generosity around that. One of my I think, career highlights is always going to be opening the Dome. We had a night where donors and others came in, and they sat. We had 60 people. Every seat was filled. And we started talking. And so many of them had graduated from New Canaan High School as kids. And they all remembered being elementary kids, going on a field trip to the Dome, and how amazing it was, this magical space, and how excited they were. And they wanted to help and contribute towards redoing it to provide their kids with that same experience. And it really so powerful. So the gift of the renovation of the Dome now creates the space where another whole generation of New Canaan kids are going to be able to go in, sit down, look up, and just explore that wonder. I think it's so magical, so powerful. Anyway, the phone-free schools initiatives that we've had across the district, our creation of the intermediate school to streamline that communication, our literacy academy, the downtown campus, you can see all of these different things. And of course, all of it, and the strong community partnerships and the work that we do together. Colleen is here from New Canaan Cares. Hello, Colleen. The work we did, continue to do, all the time. Most recently with Dr. Eliza Pressman, and the other things we do. We also are continuing our cookie program. Now, you probably don't know about our cookie program, but I'm just going to take a minute to explain it. About a year and a half ago, I was speaking at a New Canaan Community Foundation event, and afterwards somebody came up and said he'd like to fund a program that we were just talking about and I was just sharing about. He said, I want to do this anonymously, but I'd like to try it as a pilot. I said, okay. And he invested and we tried it, and it went very well. And then we tried it. So he invested for the whole last year. A single person did it, and now this program has grown. And what it does is it invests it puts a set amount of money, about $30 a month, into the food account, the debit system account, for each one of our students who's on our free and reduced lunch program, which you qualify for that program through your income, right? So these are students that, are qualified, and we use the federal level, so it's a pretty low level. These are folks that could use some help, right? So, and in the program, they could get the hot lunch, right? So they could get a free hot lunch, but what they couldn't get were the extras. So they couldn't get a cookie, they couldn't get a juice, couldn't get a salad, a sandwich, a wrap, those other things that everybody else was getting. And so and this was thanks to our counselors and others, our leaders, who saw that this was, it was a problem. We talked about it, and we went forward, said this would be great. So anyway, moving forward, last year we sold over close to 3,000 cookies to the 130 students that are in this program. We sold 2,000 wraps and sandwiches. We sold waters. We sold all kinds of things thanks to this program, which is designed to help our kids and families who need it the most. And I think that I mentioned before about sort of statements of values and all in our budget workshop. That to me speaks volumes about who we are as a community, what we care about, how we support each other. And I think that this program is, I know it's one of the most impactful things I've ever seen, because now we have 160, give or take, students who are in our free and reduced lunch program. And each day when they go to lunch, they get the hot lunch or get what they need to get, but they can also get a cookie. They can also get those other things like everybody else. Cafeterias are hard enough. And I'd never even thought about how it might, signal to a student or to the friends, that it's the hot lunch every day, what that might mean for that child. That's no longer an issue. So to me, this is, I can go on and on. It's a powerful thing, and it changes the whole experience of being a student in our schools for those kids, and makes it more welcoming, certainly, more supportive. So anyway, moving on. We've also received some recognition nationally and statewide. I use niche because it uses a little bit more holistic than most of the others, but there was one that just came out yesterday that it was like 24/7 Wall Street, whatever it was, had us 30th in the country as well. Anyway, and the state niches ranked us as the #1 school district. We've number 1, 2, 3 middle schools, high school, all these things. What I love the most about this is the #1 best places to teach and the #1 districts with the best teachers. Because that tells me we are creating the conditions for our teachers to thrive and that they are taking advantage of those conditions and thriving. So it's our job to create the conditions, it's their job to take advantage of them, and it's working. And I think you see the same thing when you go to the national scale, our district being considered the 30th in the country out of over 10,500, 24th with the best teachers, 36th with the best places to teach, and then 18th in the country out of close to 10,000 schools for best schools for student athletes, which I think is astounding because of everything else that we do. When I think about, when I think about some of these districts, Texas, California, Florida, whatever, that are factories with all these professional athletes coming out, and that's what they do, and they do it better than anybody, and people move there for that reason, and all those things, that's great, and that works for them. That's not who we are. Right? We're athletics and participation, and we're the virtual performing arts, and we're kids doing beekeeping, and we're all of these other things. We're Model UN. We are all of that, and to be considered that positive of a place for students interested in athletics, I think is a very strong statement. And, as I said, close to 70%, close to 7 in 10 kids are on one of these teams. I think that's wonderful. Now, it's a budget presentation, conversation, so I do have to talk about numbers a little bit. And sometimes, I love to talk about when we're at or near the top of all of what we do. But there's one metric we don't want to be at or near the top of what we do. And this speaks to that goal 5, that stewardship piece, right? So again, lots of numbers, not great slides, I apologize. You guys have such better graphic designs than I do. But what this shows, so net current expenditure per pupil, that's your per pupil expenditure. And that is a number that's normalized across the state. So what the state does, by September 1 of every year, we have to file our educational financial report, which is unaudited. It all goes in, and then we audit, and we go back and forth. But we all have to submit the same lines to the state of our expenditures. It includes donations. It includes all of that. And then they normalize it so that they can compare district to district. And then they create the NCEP, the net current expenditure per pupil, and they use this number to determine certain things throughout the course of the year. For instance, high-cost special education students, if there's a student that costs more than 4.5 times this number, then the state gives us a percentage reimbursement for those costs, right? And that's one of the ways that they help to fund special education. So this is an important number, so they are careful about normalizing it. Now, sometimes there's conversations about what should or shouldn't be in the number. That's fine. But it is normalized for comparison's sake across all of these districts. Okay. So with that, when we look at again, this is our reference group. You see that we're 43rd in the state as far as our per pupil expenditure last year. This year we're still spending, so we don't know where we're going to land, right? Last year. We're 43rd in the state, which actually puts us in the second quartile, which I think is pretty amazing for the outcomes that we're getting in the input, right? Again, return on investment. Some of the other districts you see, so Joel Barlow High School, it's a high school district, so maybe that's not a great comparison, but Greenwich is much larger than us, 2.5 times or so. So if there's efficiencies of scale, you would think that they would be able to take advantage of that. And if our budget was Greenwich's budget per pupil back last year, we would have to add an additional $13.25 million to our budget in 23-24 to where it actually was. If it was Westport's, again, about a little bit bigger than us, but per pupil, if we spent that per pupil for each one of our kids, it'd be an additional $9 million. And in Darien, it would have been an additional $4.1 million. So this stuff matters, right? So again, we've got about 4,000 kids, and if they're spending $1,000 more per pupil, then it'd be another $4 million. Okay. I'm looking at the math teacher to make sure that I have my math right. There you go. So anyway, this is a good pause because this has been our goal, right? It's part of, I feel like it's deeply our responsibility to build sustainable systems in our schools. Our school systems should be here another 100 years plus, right? I mean, it should be here. We're building systems and supporting systems that we hope to live on well past all of us. So we do that in part by thinking long term, making small changes now that will continue to yield positive results down the line. I'll talk about that in a sec. Because on the far right, ANGLIC, does anyone here know what ANGLIC stands for other than Erica? Don't say it if you don't know it, because then you'll mess me up. No, it's adjusted, equalized, net grand list per capita. Okay? Which means it's a wealth ranking. So one of the ways you could look at this, but this isn't how we look at it because I think that it's all in partnership. Others could look at it as a willingness to pay versus an ability to pay. Okay? We don't quite look at it that way because I know we have the support of the town. And if I said we need this, they'd be willing to fund if it was need. So NCEP is what it cost us. But ANGLIC, so we are the fourth, because of our adjusted equalized net grand list per capita, considered the fourth wealthiest town in the state. 1 is Darien, 2 Westport, 3 Greenwich. Okay. Which, being number 4 isn't great either, because as we think about construction and other things, our reimbursement from the state is quite a bit lower, because they use that number for a whole host of other things. So anyway, how have we done this, right? It's not magic. It's a series of small things we've done that have provided us with some savings and helped us to keep our expenditures down. And again, I don't have the graph, but if we go back to 2014 or so for the NCEP, we were hovering somewhere in the low 20th in the state, right? So we've seen this number moving in the right direction for us comparatively because of the investment. So one of the things we've done is really work hard to manage the operational costs. And so a great example of that is our utility costs over time. So in 2014, we spent about $1.9 million, give or take, on utilities 10 years ago. This next year, we're budgeting about 1.3 million. How many of you have had your utilities go down over the last 10 years? Me neither. I'd love this. So if you trend it with a market, we'd be almost double what we were. But what we've been doing is investing in the solar, and when we do that, we do PPAs, so we negotiate agreements with the companies to keep our rates lower. We always have to pay Eversource for the transmission, but the rates we can low, so we do those negotiations. We've done the natural gas work that we've done. We have propane over at West because we didn't want to use oil anymore, and we couldn't get natural gas out there. If you live out there, you know why. So we have propane that we're using to heat that building. We have the CHP system over at Saks that's burning natural gas, producing electricity and heating the water and doing some other work for us there. So we've really worked hard to manage down those utility costs because we know as long as the lights turn on, it doesn't help kids if we have to pay more for it. It just is we just need it. So if we can negotiate this hard and squeeze this down in different ways, then that frees up more resources to go into the classroom and help kids. So it's just an example of some of the things we've done. We've insourced our expertise for plumber and carpenter and HVAC and other trades. They're part of our maintenance team. So if something goes wrong, they can get on the site right away and take care of it instead of us having to call, bring somebody in who doesn't own the space and has some kind of an incentive to maybe come back soon, so may not do the greatest job. Whereas our guys don't want to come back because then we say, why didn't you fix it right the first time? So lots of things like that. Again, lots of little things that add up over time. And it makes a difference. So it is a budget meeting, so I do need to just quickly talk about. So year to year, we're looking at a 4.6% increase. The vast majority of that is salaries. And really, a school district's budget is over 82% salaries and benefits. It's a people business. You know, from the minute kids get on the bus to when they walk into the school, they go to class, they're in the hallways, they go to lunch, they go out to recess, they go home on the bus, everything that happens after school, whether if they're involved in any clubs or activities or sports, there's adults with them, right? There are people with them, professionals with them. So the staffing is the most important piece. The breakdown, again, salaries and benefits, 82%, give or take, of the total budget. And then we have purchase services, which includes our transportation contract, and which is about $4.8 million and a few other things. It goes that way. I do always think it's important just to look to see, okay, what's the balance? Because we talk about those objects because the state requires us to create our budget in that way. But we also like to look at it by cost center. And for our purposes here, we see 4 grades at Saks, 4 grades at the high school, parity and spending around that. And it's always a good thing to take a look at. And the same with our elementary schools as we look across, right? So we've got close to 800 staff members who work in our district. The vast majority of them are teachers and related support. We invest in the classroom. We want to make sure that those are our teachers, our TAs, our specialists, our counselors, others. We also do some things other districts don't do. For instance, our food service employees work directly for us. We don't contract through a third party. So we don't have like a Whitson's or a Sodexo who does that work. Our folks do. We manage that ourselves. Gives us better quality control, gives us better longevity to our staff. I think the food is much, much better. We also don't participate in the national lunch program, so we're able to offer kids things they want to eat and can be healthier because not to get into it, but sometimes the food that's in that program, higher salt, more processed, come from other places. We can use more natural things, believe it or not, because we're not in that system. Again, same goes with our facilities, with our maintenance crew. Other districts may not do that, but we work very carefully to manage. It says we're going down 1. We have 1 position this year that is grant funded. It was a use it or lose it kind of grant at one of the elementaries. So we used it, brought somebody in, and she knows it's a 1-year spot, and she's doing the work. The grant goes away, and it's a reading specialist type position to do some tutoring and work with kids over at one of the elementaries. Okay. But we are keeping our staffing consistent because we also notice that our enrollment projections tell us that this may be the last year that we can do so. When we look at, there's actually a couple of different ways to look at this. This is probably, I'm just going to, because I will keep you here all day. I don't want to do that to you. The best way to look at it. So these are our total enrollments. The bottom is K4, the middle is 5 through 8, and the top is 9 through 12. Okay? So this is historic until it gets to that blue line, 24, 25, and then it's projected. Right? So what it shows is essentially next year we anticipate steady enrollment. We might drop a couple of kids by graduating a larger class than is coming into kindergarten, and then so that total may go down a little bit, but not in any one specific area, like grade level. 26, 27, we start to see a change there where our incoming kindergarten class is about 115 kids bigger than we're used to. So generally, historically, if our kindergarten class on the high side might have hit about 300, that's on the high side. And going back 10 years, that happened once or twice in 10 years. In 26, 27, it's projected to go over 400. And then for every year after that to stay well above 300. And those are the projections that we've been looking at for the last couple of years, thinking, it's going to change, it's going to change. It hasn't changed. So it's close. So this next year going in, I feel a little bit like this is where you take a deep breath and before you dive in to do this next level of work. The board has been meeting. I've been meeting with them. We've been talking with other folks, working with other consultants. We've got lots of work going on district-wide, because ultimately what happens, so again, historic and then projected, the numbers are pretty consistent next year. But then you see that top green is our elementary. Again, that's just that's K4. And you see that increase. And then you see out in 2030, 31, that's when those bigger kindergartners get to 5th grade. And then the middle school starts to grow. And then years after that, the high school would start to grow, right? As these kids move up through the grades. So we're planning for it. We're talking about it, thinking about what's the best approach and how can we best do this with the town. Yeah, I do wake up in the middle of the night sometimes worried about it, but we'll figure it out. The board's been doing great work. I've been keeping the town apprised of what we're doing, speaking with the first selectman and some of the others. There's a few options that'll be considered, and we'll figure it out. It's what we do. But it's actually a great problem to have, because it's really a statement about what we're doing, what the outcomes we're getting, people wanting to move into town, wanting to be a part of this. And so part of what's happened, as I understand it, having met with the Board of Realtors and had some great conversation about this, is that during the pandemic, young couples moved in prior to starting their families, where generally folks were moving in after they started a family when their children were school age. So a couple of years ago, they started moving in prior, and then started their families here in town. And we still have that wave of folks who started their families elsewhere and then came in when their students were of school age. So you sort of have that new group of folks that moved in around that pandemic time when they hadn't yet started their family that are now starting it. And anecdotally, I see more strollers than, not now, but in the spring and summer, more strollers around, more young couples around. And I'm always so happy to meet people who are brand new to town, more so in the last 2 years than in the 9 leading up to it. So it's exciting. I think it's a wonderful thing. And it gives us opportunity to continue to grow and invest in our kids. So it's great. So as I mentioned, we'll stay consistent. SACS is over on the right. We're planning to stay consistent with our staffing numbers and a few other items that are of note, which I won't go into any detail around unless you'd like me to, but I can move through this pretty quickly. We are investing in textbooks. We've got some older books that need to be repurchased and et cetera. Our transportation is a big budget item, going from $4.7 to $4.8 million. Those are our big yellow buses. We save an awful lot of money on the other end with our white vans, because even just yesterday, Monday, I had lunch with my colleagues in all the other Durgay towns, and they were asking, how do we do this? How do we have this whole fleet? And we said, well, why don't we look to see if if we're going to a school that you have a student going to, why don't we pick you up on the way if we can, and then we can split the cost. So there's other opportunities there that we're exploring as well. But the cost for one student and one outplacement for transportation is about $125,000 per student. We've got 24 vans. So just right there alone is, do the math. Yeah. Okay. So now this is where we really get to see the picture. So thinking about this budget, as I mentioned, sort of investing in what we're doing, working to do it better and better, and really getting that space to plan ahead, not just for 26, 27, but for the next 5, 7, 10 years after that. So we'll be doing that work with the board, with the town, with others. Budget does support everything that we do, that we're so proud of doing, and enables us to continue to optimize that work. And then just very quickly, I'm sorry. Whoops, go back. Okay. On the capital side, because we have operating, then we have capital, and I always do. I never give capital the time it deserves, but over at SACS and capital, we're looking to continue the work that we've been doing on the flooring and looking outside for that playground and looking to replace that rubber. I know that the rubber surface that's there, it's about 10 years old, give or take. It's starting to crack and cause some problems, so we want to do that. We're also doing that over at East. Connecticut passed new legislation that said if you design and replace a playground from after July 1, 2025, it must include rubberized surfacing as part of the design. It can be very expensive. I mean, over East, we're anticipating about $250,000 for that. So I'm working with the board and having some conversations about when we do replace playgrounds, PTCs have always been a big part of that. I think that it should be our responsibility to pay for the surfacing and the PTCs to do the fundraising for the equipment and the other piece. So I think that's a great partnership for us to develop. And so we might as well, we should start doing it. And we had 3 broken arms in the first month over at East in the, from the monkey bars. So said, let's do that one first. Here at the high school, lots of things going on at the high school, big and small. You've got, a new kiln. I don't need to explain why. And doing other things. Now, one of the biggest piece here, which is worthy of much more conversation, but a quick summary is last year in the budget, we were looking at replacing the PA system at Saks and here. And we said, why don't we pause on that a little bit and see, instead of replacing kind of tinny speakers with tinny speakers, is there a more holistic, comprehensive solution that we can find? We did some research, found a group that actually would come out and partner with us, put speakers in every classroom, and then a teacher would wear a lanyard that would have a microphone. And so for instructional purposes in every classroom throughout the period, the teacher's voice would be amplified a bit. And there's a mic for kids and whatever else, and which I've always thought makes an awful lot of sense, because we work so much on the visual with our smart boards and other things, but we really don't do much with the auditory. And we've got a generation of kids, certainly here at the high school and beyond, that spend a lot of time with headphones on, gaming, whatever else. And so, I think that over time we're going to need to compensate for that with some enhancement of the audio in the classroom. Additionally, it's your PA system. So now there's a granular control over the PA system, where if we're meeting in here and Bill wants to turn off the bells just in here so I'm not interrupted, he could do that for me. Or if he wanted to play music, or if he wanted to do other things, he could do that for me. It also, though, so it does those pieces. It allows us that granular control. It does the bells, again, granular control. So if you're on a split schedule, for instance, at lunch here at the high school, periods 1, 2, period 3 is a little bit longer because you have either first lunch, middle lunch, or last lunch. What you could do is set it up so that the bell, if you're in last lunch, the middle bells don't ring in your classroom. It only rings when it's time for you to go, versus being interrupted as you're doing those things, which it may not seem like a big interruption, but it matters, right? You can kind of lose your flow. Kids, you start looking at the clock, then they start thinking, who am I going to sit with at lunch, and what am I going to have, and what am I going to do? It's all of those things, so it allows us to manage that. Of course, same over at Saks with the split schedule. So we wanted to, well, the last thing it does is that lanyard, which is hard-coded to the system, to the person, it has a sequence of buttons they can press in order to send an alert. So it not just does it send an alert, but it's by location. So if I'm using the system and there's a medical emergency in my room, I can hold the button down, do what I need to do. It'll send an alert. It'll say Bryan Luizzi in that room, and it will bring the cameras up that are closest to that room to the front for our campus monitor. So it's integrated into our security system in those ways. So we've gone from tinny speakers to a whole comprehensive solution that'll make a very big difference, I think. So we're looking to do this in the high school next year. We try to do it summer 25 if all goes well, and then we look to do it summer of 26 over at Saks. Okay. And then we invest in technology, do our work. So it's a $5 million capital budget, which is about where we typically land. It's usually between 4.5 and 5.5 million. Difference is this year we have the PA system. We're not doing a roof. We will be doing a roof in the relatively near future, probably over at Saks. That can be a couple of $1 million, but we're in the ballpark for a capital budget. We manage operating, and we get, essentially it's one check that we'll get. We'll get $108 million, whatever it is, budget from the town, and then we divide it, manage it, work through it, implement it, and then we're accountable to the town and the board of how it's spent afterwards. Capital is, they hold on to that fund, we run the project, and then it gets, we spend the money, and then we get reimbursed from the town for that, as we go through. So it's managed a little bit differently on the capital side, okay? And you've been so good and so patient, thank you. Thank you for letting me talk about some of the things that I love about what we've been doing. Hopefully you see how the budget is really the mechanism through which we provide the kids the experiences, the opportunities, the things that they get to do. And we manage it very closely, but we also make sure that we are investing in the things that matter the most. And I think we do a really good job with that. And I hope that your kids are having wonderful experiences in our schools, because that's really what it's all about. Any questions, anything, any conversation, or did I really suck all the wind out of the room? All the air out of the room? Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, we will be having conversations about what's to come with those enrollments and other things. If you're interested, pay attention. If you have any thoughts, let me know, or let the board know, or let the town know. It's going to be interesting. We're going to be looking for some pretty big investments. I will share, just for context, our neighbors to the south have invested about $200 million over the last few years. They've got $100 million going into renovations of their 3 elementaries, and they just renovated Ox Ridge at about $68 million or so. Over in Westport, they're spending a little over $100 million on one of their elementary schools over there. So we're not alone in this. It's sort of the buildings are kind of getting to be a certain age. I mean, we still talk about the high school as our new school. It was completed in 2008, I believe, right? So it's about 20 years. It's 2006, 2008. Was it 6? But anyway, we've got some work to do and some investments to make. And so if you're interested, let us know. Thank you. Yes?
Can I just drop a bomb here?
Please.
Why
not?
Any thoughts on redistricting these 3 elementary schools?
Sure. So yes. Yep. That is part of the conversation. It is something that is, so right now, we're doing a capacity study with a group. I'm meeting with them on Martin Luther King Day. We're going to walk through the elementaries and do some work. If nothing were to change, we're out of capacity, right? So we have to do something. We do have some concentrations of folks moving in different parts of the town. So East is the largest school by far, by about 100 kids comparatively. So we do have to look at both, what are we doing about future capacity, and what are we doing about current catchment areas? So yeah, we're looking at it. Yeah, no bomb. Actually,
It's very unpopular when we moved here in 2012, we could just redistrict, and it was divisive.
oh, it's awful. It's awful. It's awful. I don't kid myself. I used to try to find a euphemism for it, but no, I just say it. And when I met with that board of realtors and we were talking about it, I told them that we're looking at this, and their feedback really was, look, we get it, you have to. I know, first, no, but we understand you have to, but do us a favor, be clear, be as sort of proactive as you can be, and let people know with as much time as you possibly can. And because they were confused even after we had done it the last time, and families think one thing and then learn another. Look, our schools are amazing, right? I mean, 1, 2, and 3 in the state. Come on, right? What are we talking? But I understand this is an emotional thing for people. So we're going to do it as certainly with respect and dignity and everything else. But it's going to be hard. I don't kid myself. It'll be a challenge. That's why we need an expert with a briefcase who lives out of town. Good. Thank you. Thank you.